let's understand what are the workflows and what are the core things. So core things are displays a list of available workflow activities. So here, if you go here, this is the right hand palette which he was talking about. That is the workflows. The workflows are all the workflows, and the core is the core tab where you can find the core activities. That is, these are all activities. And the workflows you can search by scrolling down, or you can search anything you want, like routine. So here you can see the routine change, something like that. And similarly, if you want to search in core, because there are many like you can just expand them, but it's always tough. So if you just click here like script, it starts showing whatever there are within script, like run script or scriptable order guide, anything. So this is about the configurations about the workflow editor. And the next is opening existing workflow, and I hope you guys have already opened up the existing workflow. I have opened one, and you can see to open a workflow for editing, select the workflows in the tab. That's what we've done. Next, click a workflow to open up in its workflow editor tab. The workflow editor takes its scope from the window which launched the workflow editor, and this is where you might have wondered like how ServiceNow came to know my scope, because it opened up in a new tab and there is nothing which describes about the application scope. So what it does is it just takes the scope from the window, and now any workflow can be opened, but only in scope workflow are editable. This is where I was talking global. Now in our case, the global things cannot be updated or edited, but if anything gets created in hotel management, then they can be edited. Now checking out workflow. Well, to prevent developers from making changes to a workflow, because the reason is why I'm talking about checking out is you have seen two terms, checking out and published. Now you are going to really understand what is this checkout means. Like checkout is something which prevents the developers from making changes to a workflow which will impact other users. Workflow needs to be checked out before they can be edited. Yes, this is a real, we can say that ServiceNow thinks about their users a lot. Now developers do a lot of development. Now just imagine a workflow is actually there within the ServiceNow developer instance, and there are two developers working. One developer is just utilizing the workflow, but the second developer is actually editing the same workflow. Now how can these two guys be in sync? That's where ServiceNow comes into picture, and they say, hey wait, now the developer who is just utilizing the workflow will actually utilize the locked version, and now whatever the other developer is making changes on that workflow, he has to check out that workflow. That means that developer will get just a copy of the workflow and he can change the workflow, and once he publishes them, then only it will be available for all the other people within this instance. So that is the difference between checkout and publish. That's what we were talking about, checkout versus publish. So when a workflow is checked out, changes are applied to the workflow only for the user who checked it out. So only for the developer who is working on that workflow, he will be able to see whatever changes are happening. But until and unless he doesn't publish it, the other developer will not even know what's happening. So when development is complete, workflows must be published to be active in the environment. So you don't think always that whenever you just made your workflow, you checked it out, you worked around it, and then you forgot to publish. That means it's indirectly your work is not visible to anyone. That's how it is. So the workflow actions can be, you can do it check out or publish. Where do you do them? There is a menu for us, and that menu is, here you can see this is the menu, and here you can see this is new or open existing. This is about this one, and it's because this is not out of scope, you cannot actually check out or publish, as I said. But if you create any in scope, now in the later part of the tutorial I'm going to practically implement it on the hotel management. At that point of time I'll be showing you how to check out and how to publish that. So this is about checkout versus publish. And let's understand the creation configurations. How do you create it? As I said, you can always create it from either the studio or the main ServiceNow browser window. You need to just click on the new button, that is a plus sign. Here if you are working in the browser like this one, or you can always open up like this. So here are the properties. Now what is that? First one is name. Obviously you have to provide a name to your workflow, and this workflow should act on which table. As I always speak, ServiceNow's heart is model, that is the tables. So now if a workflow has to start, it has to start on some table, and which table? Now if I'm going to create my workflow on the hotel management, it picks up the table as hotel management. And the description field provides the description about what this workflow is and what it will be doing. So that's what we'll understand in the description field. Now the conditions. Why the condition? If condition matches what you want to do, like as I said, there is the change in the number of the users to 6. At that point of the time, it has to be run. So I can add a filter condition here, and whenever these conditions match what you want to do. Do you want to run the workflow? Run if no other workflows matched yet. But if this is a deprecated one, run if no other workflows matched. So run the workflow always, or run if no other workflows matched. Now here comes the tricky thing, because maybe for the same condition you might have written 2 workflows. So in such cases, then you can go and say if no other workflows matched, but here the other workflow also matched, so this will not work. So that's how this option works around. And then you can submit, and once you submit, your workflow would be ready. And that's what if condition checks for. And then the descriptions, the conditions. The workflow template always contains begin and end activities, and once you submit it, you'll see a canvas which is having a begin and end activity by default. That means that ServiceNow by default provides you those 2 activities. And always remember, how do you save them? Because in basic other browser window, wherever you do something, you do is right click, save or update. This is how you do. But in workflow, no need to worry. You just drag and drop. That means it's saved. That's it. You don't need to worry. Oh my god, I have to hit Ctrl S, or I have to go to the menu bar and right click save. Nothing to worry. Directly it saves. So this is all about the workflow and the configuration properties. Now, adding activities, as I said, you can actually add the activities in 2 ways. One is switch to the core tab, click, hold and drag an activity onto the canvas. Hover the activity over a transition, and when the transition turns blue, drop the activity. So there are 2 ways you do it. As I said, if you go to this browser window palette, you just select this. Now you cannot drag and drop anything here because this is not editable. But what you do is you select this, you bring it like this, put it over this line, and what actually it happens is, if it is editable, this arrow which is in gray color turns into blue. And then in that point of time, just drop it. What happens is that creates a relationship between these 2, and then it opens up, the activity opens, and every activity has different kind of configuration. Because if you want to send an email, that activity would be having something like, okay, tell me the recipient address, what is the body you want to have, such things. If you drag and drop an approval activity, then it will be asking for who will be the approval and what should he do. That's how. So that is one way, that is dragging and dropping. The other is switch to core tab in the palette, double click an activity to add the activity, or simply if you feel you cannot just drag and drop every time onto the correct line, just double click on this, and once you double click, it pops up here like scriptable order guide. It comes up, and then fill up the all required conditions, and then your activity is ready. After that, take this transitions, put them clearly. So as I said, now we'll understand about adding and deleting the transitions. To delete a transition, click on the transition to select, and then just click on the delete button. As simple as it is. And if you want to add a transition, just hold and drag from a node to another activity, and the transition gets created. When the activity turns blue, release the mouse. This is the way. Note, as I said, we need not to save it explicitly, everything is stored implicitly. So for creating the node, just catch it here, bring it here, it creates, and if you don't want, click it here, delete it. That's it. So this is about adding and deleting transitions. And the last one is configuring and validating. So how do you configure them and how do you validate? Every workflow activity has its different set of configuration fields. As I said, approval has a different configuration, email notification has a different configuration. The configuration fields are dependent upon what an activity does. So that's again the same part. Now, workflow validation is the first step in ensuring a workflow is error-free. So once you complete your entire workflow, it's always a best practice to click on validate workflow. It's not mandatory, but I say you use it as a mandatory thing, which helps you in understanding if there are any issues. Validation prevents workflows with critical flaws from executing and resulting in an unstable or incomplete state. So what all valuable information that you can get from validation is, it can check for activities with missing transition. Might be you had an activity but you failed to connect it to other activity, or multiple end activities, or there is no end activity at all. So can be tricky. Actually you'll have only one begin and one end, but if you try to put two ends, it again is a wrong way. Invalid table references, if you're giving some invalid table, then also it will tell. So validation plays a crucial role in understanding what it does or how our workflow is actually working. So this is about the basic understanding of the workflows.